since I'm sitting here, I can. This is a Are you gonna sit there the entire time? Can you just move one desk forward then? Like, so you can see or it's a flow. Is it to flow or to see? To flow.
Where are you gonna sit then?
That's the desk.
You can sit on the floor.
Wait.
Alright, that's changed. Wouldn't you love that? No. Because I believe in impartial education.
Lowercase O D E X B and then uppercase T.
Also produce speeches. This is the bigger room and speak a little while.
Gotcha.
Got it. You said it?
Yeah. Lowercase O D E, lowercase X B, uppercase T.
I'm good.
Plano does the Supreme Court of the United States, I'll be terminal to the 27th Florida. Cross Catherine Amendment of the Supreme Court, 2018 years, no rule, terms of one term, target every 2 years, every justice, part of extradition, patent, without regulation, justice, for only the brigade, no certification, the justice be reappointed, maybe justice permitted to serve life in the Lord, federal court, the advantages of legitimacy, the Supreme Court is facing its largest limitation, crimes of appeal, justice, court, fractures, democracy, I think, 60-20, pulling to the crimes of the court of the United States, and if you try to restore faith in the court of the Central Undertaking, preserving our democratic institutions, journalism, but also restore confidence and independent judicial body, but simply purporting and certainly 40% of Americans now have a favorable opinion, like we're looking for a change, 67% in favor of trial, the court is losing faith in the of the American people, something must be done, multiple internal to court legitimacy, one is ideological, drift light turns, not by Democrat justice, drift over Republican, they become a lawyer that's Polish, and what's going on right there, more research about general substituting cosmetics, use confirmation, judicial decision making, motivated president, picking younger justice, the post-war to evidence for opening justice, under 60, you would bring experiences that have nominated justice, under 40 to 50 justice, who, at the time of confirmation, is passed, you reflect the public enemy away every time you become more ideological, just made no longer the American, they preside over the court rules and public comment to maintain legitimacy, second is diversity, increase turnover, commerce is court diversity, that's parliamentary, 18 shows the provide the potential to allow system, law, representative opportunity, name more diverse candidates, presidential name, serious considered with very specific law school producers, close to the federal, lawyers having justice with the diversity rate can mitigate everything allowed, justice to be more creative and effective, diversity is a critical internal link to trust that's been in T20, 2 billion works as a crucial, is a crucial health and social justice and more underrepresented communities, setting the greater representation of black judges, high perception that course of legitimate growth, Richard Gerson, constant empathy, now faultless from different angles, 3 strategic retirement, life turner causes strategic retirements that rate college, and 224. Normally, the government has a report for human affairs cannot be, doesn't made known. Partisan being for retiring as a good counter administration true, and more peaceful than other reasons. Instances risen sharply in the last 50 years, under the current civil justice determined when they retired, having considerable influence over the ideology, the success of the remainder of the term. Strategic retirements reform and giving the legitimate for this burning 20. One of the things that the modern democratic results strategic retirement designs law that will enable students to turn itself into self-state power, so turns out retirement allowed to choose when to retire in almost all cases. They choose to retire with political conditions, disrupting ideology, competition, go and change into perpetuity, and outside of the control democratic body, core legitimacy, key yourself, democratic backsliding, that's your result 22. Course level of the same problem of the competition level, engineer, running liberty means government officials, temporary people become unlikely to accept public policies, but they disagree that what happens when an institution fails to resemble the genetic direction, writers, less faith, this is not underground American democracy. The court may be soon and after result of these election election, when inspector constitutional crisis will over the 3 Supreme Court retains legitimacy and authoritarianism, resolve the dominant legitimacy and rule on the streets, reject the idea that democracy is alternative, peaceful authoritarian, to bully and rule and imply every negative impact against colleges. 17 never got political governments and hours with all the conservative and the respective reason and the unconditional organization of the states already terrible and integrity with innovative democratic power and affairs of the states under the feudalism, culture, democratic culture, wars, and Chinese conception of the stable, the global order, Western more tenuous and culture, components on national foundation, and negative bullying and stands for state system of war, but as a Eurocentric system before and after World War I, populated by states with equal weapons, authoritarian and worse than climate change, democracy, only way to solve this line is 20, or this line is 22, so that's an only ego authoritarian, maybe the only way to just find is
The dock closed.
I can pass. You're at 3 minutes.
Okay, okay. Cool. Starting on authority.
authoritarian reason having over disaster reducing carbon output in the democracy, many all exporting without a Russian common whole and complicating this company changing from our system that are urban and individual with a full freedom of expression, independence, for disagreeing, problems on the democracy, but cares the evidence also the company, they're able to restrict and power of the government, build a liberal, probably democratic system, law, freedom, promotion, the actual parliamentary mobilization, internal interchange, authoritarian, such as political, social society, or congregation of polar 20, well, different for authoritarian capacity, overweighting important grassroots, making it into stimulating politics, transfer, no taxation, also authoritarian government, faith in their pressure, fundamental policy, without freedom of expression, the president, acting on society, can offer meaningful debate, risk, control, less censorship, and how internal greenhouse gas industry, his proposal to without electoral board, the breaker of the job, credibility, war constitution, this capital alternative, emissions, Canadian increase, there are few and tipping points that are going to generate high GHG country, one tipping point, people like tipping one another, essential hospital, competition, little on the plots of society, cumulative problems of warming over one side, while having capacity, companies compared to the internal gas rational, companies that really discredited, exchange are multiplying numerous failures, that federal society, most problems in for extinction, that's why during question 15, when it's of competition from the wise, second, and needs and headers, and hurls, high chance of investment, but it's organized, global warming, about the true planetary catastrophe, the god, bringing current emphasis most needed, is in order to respond all of the event from anything close to this time, ever pandemic seemed to it seems like it needed additional efforts that revolves again on the small fraction of national income coverage of the first organ president, a little bit of reason that we believe the heritage achieve basic things and chemistry forever. The standard of national will be specified human items for one pleasure, pain, and utility value in this slide is Plano 18. Pleasure, wonder, which are reproducible, super similar, avoiding the pleasure, pleasure, out there, you're trying to work with the organs, the result of evolutionary competition, or increased evolutionary fitness, that's why food space and offering are often awarding many ranges of model pleasure, produce the opposite, like in some organisms by breaches in the limbic system, differentiates, sustains, so the depressive or research, and the resource more constant, or air, remain more developed in human teeth, responsible for production, domain, double, pleasure, one, human, the limbs, or worth these ways. Secondly, natural morals are fast this. And another thing is that more likely to make a difference in physical world knowledge, nature, temporal was made by physical process, and developers and consciousness, and more reflection on the physical part of the habit, any knowledge of the 3 less so progressive, summer, completing more conditional, logical, including actions, being able to engage in ethical evaluations, or concentrated crisis force, expect government was aggregates, every policy benefits some harm, other all calculated for action, be sales like will assess the policies go, collect expect conversion of different actions, different ethical statement, which are calling it, control, action, no action, mission, distinction, A is expect that sustainable effect. Government official, policy, with our pleasant team, action, mission, does not make a world of the government's levels in creating purpose and purpose when it puts the authors of private actions, not a minute, B is logic and test action, action, that's spiritual, when we also happening before the act of law, I also die, not doing also happening, we're typically moving our bodies, and also way inside base ethics fail, that's holding out, or we can have the intention of that's holding out. Or to another, we can read completely all the way from premature about the standard which we measure our needs on all the subject of the fluctuation we have to ourselves as a fixed to be able to justify the evolution to be ourselves and anything else. No set forth that if we foresee concepts that become sort of a delation, may just happen since we intended to happen, skip, accept, something we want to, but extinction always one for a closer for you to review the future and prove it. We can never improve society because it impacts the irreversible. Second, it's sorry, method cost, sorry, people asset, the resource, and debate, necessity, feasible level, gain, love, just as an closer radical, get access to where the people force, give anybody concept, gender, way to calculate back to the fair and so much, and that's the five moral strategy, and for a which interpretation, what is who got to the debating about it. One year, this is it. Anything else? If you drop the air, one issue, too short to make a time for that hour, 6 minutes to an hour, meeting before we have a meeting, interest, I'll let you know, out there, right? Well, playing defense, keep your firm neutrality, you wouldn't be able to find more legal act, like you can watch the the prohibition, needs to have to an obligation, be shown. Same with the law, the false evidence, obviously, we say, so affirming this part of that as well.
Okay, I guess this is off the dock because it's not there.
The role of us to be comparative rules, 1 is 2007 has the tips and tricks that delegitimize the data and straight away from topic education, which is a bad model of it, but comparative rules allows us to debate the fluctuation or the differences between the possible worlds. Second is fairness. Only their model of debate of truth testing allows them to just constantly skew away from the actual debate. I can read a 6-minute advantage and then they can just read the comparative paradox and I lose every single round, read permissibility trigger, which is not a valuable debate.
Okay, 3 minutes, are you good for it, Ross?
Yeah.
Wait, did you skip the decimals?
Yeah.
Are there any other operators?
No.
Okay, so the only option is the advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the advantage. Is the Eisen and Mitsuki card like a perception polling argument about legitimacy?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So, wait, is also the Ura and Hall evidence, like the affirmative?
Wait, which card?
Ura and Hall, core
Yeah.
legitimacy key. So the affirmative also garners offense off of like popularity solving core legitimacy?
I don't know what you mean. Like, so the first evidence you mentioned, the Eisen one, talks about that 67% of the population wants term limits.
So they view the core as more legitimate?
They view the core more legitimate post-plan. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's talk about the impact level. Why does democracy spill over external to the U.S.?
Our argument is broadly with strengthening LIO, which is good to hedge against.
Okay, so strengthening democracy, your impact evidence is in the context of like censorship. Why is like not strengthening democracy automatically equal to censorship?
Wait, which evidence is in the context of censorship? Like the second
yeah.
warming card?
Yeah.
Yeah, our argument is that autocratic regimes are bad. The AF is making a claim that democracy is good. The alternative to that would be significantly worse.
Why is the alternative censorship? Is the status quo
Because
censorship?
we've made an argument that if there is democratic collapse, which is happening in the status quo because of the lack of core legitimacy, that would lead to autocratic fill-in.
So what party endorses censorship in the U.S.?
Well, our argument is that a collapse of democracy would lead to the collapse of like the idea of the way that we view politics in the United States, which would lead to things like censorship.
What are some feedback loops in warming?
The arguments it talks about are like if certain ecosystems start collapsing, or like let's say one like ecosystem, like one part of an ecosystem like goes away, the food web kind of explodes, and then that like spreads to other places, and then that becomes
oh, okay, that's a feedback. Like, so how does that increase warming? Like, how does one effect of warming increase warming? That's what your evidence is talking about. It says there are feedback loops and tipping points to which warming would.
Yeah, every time you hit another tipping point, the impact gets worse.
Okay. Yeah, so food is a tipping point. What are some other tipping points?
Overwhelming societal adaptive capability, international conflict, disease spread, synchronous failures that unravel society.
Okay, synchronous failures. Alright, so do you have what are some, actually that's fine. Wagner and Weitzman, can you explain it?
It's just a weighing argument that says that like when you inevitably read an effector in an LNC, the warming impact should outweigh the impacts to the effector.
Yeah, why?
It's making the argument one that it's like a reverse Pascal's wager argument that like we know for a fact how bad warming is and it's scientific, so you should feel comfortable voting on an argument that we know is bad, but we don't know how bad whatever impact the impact term you're going to read is. It isolates how like historical president has affirmed that climate change is one of the worst issues and that humanity should not try to cheat basic physics and chemistry.
Okay. I'm sending the doc. It's gonna start with an overview to theory and then advantage one.
Just case.
Yeah. Okay, it's uploading.
Let's see. Okay.
Is anyone not ready?
Let's say any copy.
Okay. I defend the status quo and concede the frame, but here's some extra stuff to satisfy audit reasonability with the bright line of a leak of emission. Losses on the basis of emissions turns wrong because there's always a violation that I didn't know about, making me less likely to follow because there will always be something I violate. Anything else is differently regressive because we could always do something better, more accessible. That's obviously untenable. That always reject theory. The 2 hours split over theory because of the 762 species, they get 2 hour collapse and persistence disadvantage. The 3 hour no infinite abuse because 8 drilling solves these facts in the asphalt. See, finite amount of time. 1 hour theory, motor should be drop the argument and no reject it. Resolvability. The judge has intervened to determine the legitimacy of 2 responses to new 2 hour counter interference. Always have to abuse because at least a decision up to the judge, no matter the better debater. They can spam the results with the heaviest implication, which makes 2 hour impossible because we have to answer all. And it's up to the always because they at least can find a word, new analysis, and collapse, new 2 hour responses to a priori. They're not delineating cross examination. It's either robustly contested or we don't know the implication coming out of the affirmative if there was one that was hidden. Case advantage. Supreme Court legitimacy is host, but that drives Republican judicial restraint, restricting the dismantling of democracy in the administrative state. Iglesias 18 Kavanaugh's confirmation will call the court's legitimacy into doubt. It's about time the judiciary moved further right. The Supreme Court has thought that legislation open corruption undermines democracy. The public has business because the progressive movement has focused attention on the court. The conservative judges acting on economic regulations seeking to bring us to undemocratic liberal order. Violence against women's act, going up to water regulation, interstate commerce, striking down environmental protection. Republicans are looking for second guesses of administrative agencies cutting environmental, labor, or financial regulations. Isn't popular, so getting done through the court that resulted in an attack on democratic governance. Court has decided to expand Medicaid. Or excessively powerful, no basis for this. Roberts will rediscover concerns about court's legitimacy to limit to uphold the ACA. The arguments begin to gain purchase with the public. Sensible Republican judges will turn back from the great cloud of illegitimacy, will help awaken the public from a slumber. There is no way I need to win a link to this based off of cross because polling is a conceded internal link that says that the affirmative re-legitimizes the perception of the court, which is an immediate effect. effect from post-plan implementation of the plan, which is conceded from Cross, but we'll read a few cards here. First, the affirmative is the extreme measure that pulls back a declining cord. That's the entire app and Grove 19. Legitimacy is complex and puzzling. Governments and institutions lack legitimacy. Many commentators, including constitutional scholars, the former Attorney General, and members of Congress have questioned the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. The situation is so bad as the word extreme measures. It may be time to rethink blood tenure. Independently constitutional amendment signals a clear change that raises consciousness. 1488 to amend the Constitution of the Constitution, raising effect on the American people signals a clear change from the immediate past precedent that changes the most authoritative way possible, and popular consensus proof legitimacy is tanked, but the act revitalizes it in every single age group. Paul 22. Legitimacy problem. The public doesn't think the court represents their interests. Americans of all ages. Court was out of touch. Key issues. 55% of every age group said this report was out of touch. When people see that as essential to the political process, but then that's when there's a problem. 70% of people of every age group. Justice should not be capped on how long they should serve. Appeals to members of both parties. There's no way the app cycles the entire Supreme Court faster than our impact term, but perceived freedom of action will determine the intensity of rightward shift. Gladiator 20. Although Roberts is no longer, he's learned just I do media voting for moving to the right also reveal that justice who concerns about the court's perception and legitimacy will figure prominently in the ultimate speed and intensity of such a shift. Judges perceive reputational concerns are too strong. They care way less about the actual ruling at hand. Prefer leaks from actual justices. Clark 11. Insiders reveal quotes. Legitimacy is in our mind. It's important that the court has prestige. Justices are aware that they have no purse and no sword. Justices take pride with their image and reputation. The court will believe popular support for limiting judicial power. Interviews with justices and the clerks suggest that the court believes delegitimizes the court. That it is helpful that worried about enactment. It seems more likely that they're worried about support that would imply. Interviews acknowledge the court is aware of its hostility. I asked about the court's awareness. We read newspapers more than most people the court does pay attention to, and judicial overreach causes extinction. Petri 20 hope that 50 states can cooperate over the biggest problem: pandemic, economic crisis, health, climate terrorism, immigration, preservation of humanity, and life on earth. The will of law and oncologists who know limitations on power, the jungle will lose confidence in judges go too far. America's rules linked to global affairs. That American constitutionalism and the engine line to great scientific achievement and just judicial restraint can subdue the attack on regulation and prevent governance failures cascading. Adler 22, West Virginia could be a canary in the coal mine for attack on rights. APA still maintains authority. The fight is far from over. Risks extend to other areas and unpredictably scrap regulation. Hobbies agencies that may wish the court can still sideline this unworkable cannot before it blasts holes with the federal governance. This result seems unlikely. Absent judicial restraint, the court is hostile to regs and that triggers mistakes at a national scale. Food crisis, nuke drugs, nuke plant failures. Basketball and Pulsar 2017. The Great Depression was caused by ruinous competition. Congress is cumbersome moves. Slowly still, the economy is dynamic for the businesses as well as labor. The updating regulations can't wait. Policy-making authority, the agencies regulate broadcast health, farmers coordinate their response to September 11, Ebola, and financial crisis, regulate food, drugs, airplanes, nuclear power plants. Administrative state is indispensable. Court must refer to agencies' interpretations accurately reflect governance. Serves as need extinction that makes us vulnerable to no disruptions. Call iron and lack of 21. We live in a vulnerable society. Disease, weak financial accidents or attacks on system high vulnerability of systems on life depends. Administrative decisions to mitigate vulnerability. Laid out strategy preparedness for disaster, blackout, terror, attacks, nature, experts, constitution, planning across agency systems for crime to sustain life, nuclear attack and administrative readiness, vast range of functions, welfare icon, and industrial powers of administrative state, and even a short-term revival opens the floodgates to devastating reversals and precedent. Roberts moderates decisions, but only if you use them as politically divisive. Thomas and DeVal, 19 concern for court reputation in court. Roberts will move cautiously. He preferred consensus that highly determined ways are in touch with ideological views. Blue enormous amount of power. 70% were decided by one vote version. Corporate disagreeing polarization. 60% of Roberts. President altering decisions that have gone against conservatives and power powder. Troubling signal. The courts will make a decision that consensus. Divine decision. Hyperbolic express. Politically motivation. Conservative president overturn liberals. Liberals to the opposite court. Issue by president decision. Roberts will versus unlikely savior influenced by Congress. Concerns about institutional reputation and judicial legacy. Roberts has involved with the liberals. Working called Roberts if they see anything. Roberts is from conservative jeopardizing the court status. The warming scenario, the internal link to their impact is absurd. The alternative to democracy is not immediate censorship. They have to win a strong internal link to that. By that time, warming will have already passed one of the feedback loops they isolated or have been solved by democratic governance. It's true that their internal link is absurd, but reject the alarmism. Tipping points of feedback loops are negligible. Time frame is millions of years long. 20. The key tipping points such as permafrost, methane, acidification, sea level rising, crystal temperature is negligible. Permafrost would increase of 0.42 by 2300. Methane would take millennia enough time to adapt and mitigate. Each have adapted at much higher crunches and have paleontological decisions, but then cause extinction or erosion rather than CO2 SL. Or will by 1 meter by the millennium can be managed yields. Increase thanks to technology. Warming will be gradual, cushioned by inevitable intermediate mitigation. Weight 21. Possible risks are exaggerated. Everyone XMQK model have a powerful building bias to exaggerate the rising temperatures and casting several times faster than observed forecast to see worst scenarios. So times that make catastrophe forecast for against the rule. They can put out catastrophe as the next redders that the catastrophe forecast can quick follows with IPCC reports are prediction. They do not include natural variability. They do not include too good job simulating decadal scale of variability. The next 8 decades we will make progress in decoupling from good with state direction setting and private innovation transformation are around the way fast. New events will intensify them. Adaptations guaranteeing all 4.1 could be charged on disaster duty. Uncounted projected ignoring everything without comment and changing, but so is human response. With sea levels rising, human governments will defend the class society's tendency to ignore adaptation, exaggerating risk 100 to 1,300 times beyond humanity. investigate all the damage inquiry items which have leading to forms of evidence to cherry pick like the 21 and trade analysis activities around their alarms and finding prediction. There's a lot of support these areas. Trying to haunt these reconstruction temperatures are over 1 million years shows that nothing is unusual. Arctic acids are climbing while armies already has been growing their global sea ice. Actually being haunted that dark predictions are generate models highly complex and subjects news warning for during all periods of temperature less than 2.5% all models every over 6 trend of 3 core record exacerbated by tendency to unrealistic increases, average increase over 5 times annual, borderline impossible, and no cascading threats to be localized and uniquely diffuse Spanish. 21 colleague Christian alerts in the Malthusian argument, scarcity of the core academic literature remains divided. Cultural change are long and complex, uncertainty because every step accuracy down function, all evidence for related articles do not see scarcity itself resulting in outcomes impacts. Argumentation and other factors at the global, they may be regional, further effects and be alleviated adaptation at these levels. Models are accurate, comments and optimistic be that climate is manageable. Skipped Cook, which is the last card on the warming defense, and the third to last card.
The last card and
The third.
Forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Alright. I'm a bit confused. Can you explain turn?
Yeah, so the argument is that Supreme Court legitimacy is hosed, which is the affirmative fundamentally agrees with, which is the status quo. But judges are concerned about their reputational view of that within the public. If they think that their reputation is seen as partisan or politically non-independent, that means that they're more likely to exercise judicial restraint, which is a statistically significant connection.
If judges think the public doesn't see them as partisan, they're incentivized to.
If justices think that the public don't see them as a legitimate institution, then they will restrain their decisions, which is an empirically proven link.
Wait, so sorry. So if the public doesn't see them as legitimate, then they won't make rash decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. So continue.
Like
Yeah.
the impact?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if courts make politically divisive decisions, i.e. they do things like dismantle
Oh, okay,
governance.
never mind. I see. So it's like, okay.
It's just
so
bad
I
decisions.
reinvigorate the justice's ability to do like stupid shit. Basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk about the warming stuff. The no cascade card, the last card you read. Can you explain the warming?
Yeah, so in order for a study to identify causation, there needs to be a control of other variables. In order for a study to identify that warming or extinct is the only thing that contributes to a factor, there is no study that does this with warming and secondary effects and tertiary effects. In all scenarios where warming has triggered instability, there have been other effects such as unstable political governance, external to warming, etc. A lot of external factors influence governance failure. There's no causal link between warming. Insofar as there's no causal link between warming and tertiary and secondary effects, that proves that warming is not a causative factor, which proves that you cannot weigh that as an
Okay,
impact.
the Zeitler evidence, what, you say R has cherry picked, what are the reasons why?
Yeah, so first is alarmism. People have a reason to create alarmist predictions because of the fact that they know that alarmist predictions get more clicks, they get paid more well because their literature spreads within academia. Second, reconstruction of hot days shows that warming is not anthropogenic because of the fact that hot days have not...
Why does alarmism not equally apply to all of your impacts?
Because we're not alarmists.
Why?
Because we're not.
I guess the warrants you're talking about, people being bought off, etc. Whether it's not also applied.
People being bought off is a unique... why would people get... That doesn't make any sense. Alarmism is that people want to create existential titles to get clicks. Why would people do that with warming defense? Those wouldn't get...
No, I mean their impacts to the impact turn.
The impacts to the impact turn?
Why is that not alarming?
You have to read evidence that says that our evidence is bought off. We've read evidence that says your evidence is
generally
bought off.
alarmed.
It's not general. The Zeitler evidence is about warming.
Glycid evidence, can you explain this one?
Gledage?
Glycid, yeah.
That's the card I explained about secondary.
Oh, wait, yeah, that's the last one. Okay. So I guess... Yeah, actually that's fine. Oh wait, I guess... Were there any independent reasons to negate?
No. Yeah, so first, statistical analysis that controls for variables. Second, reputational concerns. We there's leaked interviews of justices about the Supreme Court and doctrines that show this. Third is empirically verified. For example, Roberts, when he perceived that he was seen as too conservative, he voted with liberals on the ACA case. Roberts does liberal compromise with the court, but the argument is that if Roberts thinks that people don't, or if people see him as legitimate, he has no reason to do these compromises, because of the fact that he is doing compromises because the public sees him as too politically polarized, and he's a Chief Justice.
What's a node disruption?
There will be disruptions to particular nodes of the United States, like their economy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Is it just like one causes the other to?
Yeah.
Great, that's all for warming. Sorry.
I'm good.
Okay.
They consider the internal link diversity, internal link means that we solve college was good. That solves warming. They consider the internal links means that they don't get to warming term because they haven't read answers. That's why we do that. We read specific evidence that says that warming will not be able to be stopped. They've read evidence about how adaptation might be able to solve things, but we have read evidence that says that autocratic regimes prevent adaptation because the collapse of civil society prevents the state from being held responsible. They also conceded that most of authoritarian regimes are petrostates, which means they would exacerbate this. Means that none of their evidence takes into account the fact that growth of authoritarianism broadly would be bad. That internal link stuff, yes, it's definitely strong. Collapse of democracy means that there would be autocratic spillover elsewhere. They haven't contested those internal links. They just say it's nonsense by the claims without lacking a warrant. The following evidence is wrong. The Westminster evidence is fantastic. I'm talking about how science and it outweighs their evidence because it talks about how we know for a fact that our argument is bad, and it should outweigh the impact on reverse Pascal's wager because we know how bad warming could be. We don't know how bad the possible alarmist arguments of the negative would be. Second, the warrant about past species is wrong because there are unforeseen amounts of carbon dioxide in the air post-industrialization, in which their evidence doesn't account for. And it's not the same as past extinction because that changes the way that things like amino acids go and the way that things can recreate on the ground. Continued feedback loops would be the worst issues, which outweighs because it would get worse throughout the way. Evidence hypothesis is off by bad signs. This anti-clumping is legitimately impossible. We don't do it. There's no possibility of declumping because we cannot stop time growth to technology. Longer evidence for a necessary adaptation. Our internal link is why they wouldn't stop talking, which is why they wouldn't stop the overview about the Vladic evidence. Or actually, that was about the Deicher evidence. It's not cherry picked. It's nonsense. Borderline being impossible isn't an impact of the alarmist, which also applies equally to the negative impact, so it doesn't matter. None of this is specific to our evidence, just about warming broadly, but it just talks about how people would be bought off. People might also be bought off. Your evidence also isolates that the Supreme Court justice has a lot of power, so they might want to buy this off for their own game devices. Evidence, yes, scarcity. More models are accurate, and there's no reason why they wouldn't get stated. One, the disruption of an ecosystem, and one tipping point would cause way worse tipping points. That they drop the thesis of our argument now. The advantage legitimizing the court is good. Our actual doing at the top, the warming stuff outweighs the Washington evidence isolates how the reverse Pascal's wager that was done above it also outweighs on magnitude. Warming would cause immense amount of pain and suffering through things like starvation, etc. But their impacts happen immediately through nuclear war, which only burn people's faces off for like 10 fucking seconds. But starving because you have no food and seeing your family die would definitely be way more painful, which outweighs on severity, independently of probability. There's a very low risk of their impacts happening, but we know for a fact warming is going to happen. Warming also turns all their impacts to life, and evidence isolates that the only thing to stop states from collapsing and all the nodes of the United States going away, which is that warming controls the internal link to every impact. Now, legitimizing the court is good. I'll answer the link. It's not an extreme change, and only the people would see it as a change, not the Supreme Court justices, which doesn't incentivize them to do stupid shit. The growth evidence concedes that radical changes would make sense because it necessitates that. Evidence is way out of context. The Goldstein evidence, the plan is popular because people on both sides of the aisle agree on it, and they wouldn't be the LGs who would make a change. Now I'll answer the thesis. One, the plan solves most of these studies, most of these justices that your evidence isolates would be gone in a world of term limits because people like Clarence Thomas or Justice Roberts only have a few years left until they hit 18, so they would be gone. It sees the plan solves the impact it has that new judges stay in line with stare decisis and don't do things like judicial overreach because they only have a certain amount of time on the court and they don't want their policies to get overturned, which incentivizes them to stay within the limits, and they also want their names to stay in history because they don't want to do stupid shit that will get overturned in the future. Interviews don't matter as far as people don't believe the same things that they say in public, especially since this interview was not taken in context of him talking specifically, and it's out of context with the rest of the arguments for is that Roberts is just someone who tries to hold up stare decisis. There's no reason why this means that he cares about public perception. The evidence you've isolated just says that he didn't vote in a certain way and tried to make people vote more moderately. That doesn't mean that that's because of things like people not giving a perception. There's a missing internal link in your fucking impact turn. So I have no reason why the court is low. Now the future evidence, the impact multiple is nonsense. One, no overreach because they have to win that term limits would move them out, and they haven't read an internal link to court to judicial overreach. They just say that they might be a bit able to like move away from the norms of stare decisis. That doesn't mean overreach, which is impending on the state's ability to stop things, meaning they don't get any of their impacts and haven't isolated as to why they prevent things like federalism or cooperation. The evidence also affirms it says that this only happens when the public loses faith in the systems that they've isolated. You should read the evidence after they're on the Adler evidence. Judicial action in terms of certain things can be but and restraint can also prevent judges from making changes that are necessary, which impact turns their impact term because judicial restraint is not always a good thing in context of certain actions that need to change, like the NEPA stuff going on in politics right now. The triggers, the misconduct on a national scale argument is wrong. Obviously, there are other government agencies that will be able to solve it for the Posner evidence. They haven't isolated why judicial overreach uniquely caused that, nor what the internal judicial overreach is. The last argument is a short revival, devastates revival and prevalent and moderate, and Roberts gets changed, but this impact card just makes no sense. Obviously, Roberts is not going to be on the court for that much longer, independently, even if he is. He has an incentive to keep things steady. They haven't read an internal link as to why justices care about people's perception, just that it might make them do different things.
Alright. Okay, 4 minutes of prep starting now. 4 minutes. The order is going to be first the turn, and then climate change, mix and climate.
Did you say A card or?
Yeah, it's uploaded.
What did you say the order was?
The turn and then warming.
Is everybody ready? Yeah. Is there like an overview that's long?
Not long.
Great.
Framing issue in this round time frame is the tiebreaker. Justices see popular opinion and polls, and they do things like read newspapers and keep up with their popularity, which is the Clark evidence inside of the 1 and 2 the play.
Louder, just louder. Just keep going. I can't hear you.
I'm just gonna restart. Framing issue, time frame is the tiebreaker. Justices see popular opinion and polls, and they do things like read newspapers to keep up with their popularity, which is their Clark evidence. The plan immediately reverses public perception from being bad to good, which is the argument, the affirmative and the negative both made and conceded, because it increases the public support for justices because they perceive that as more independent, allowing for more judicial decisions while being shielded. The court will dismantle administrative agencies. Ruling on the FTC, EPA versus West Virginia proves that they are hostile and conservative. Review makes them antagonistic to the rise of administrative agencies, which answers their arguments why agencies check the filling of the court. Because their argument is that the court will dismantle governance and cause governance failures across the board, which the 1 year has not grappled with. Independently conceded their turn on democracy, which is the first evidence we read at the top of the 1 and 2 the Iglesias evidence. The conservative judicial review is the root cause of the decline of democracy. Things like the Roe v. Wade overturn proves that people perceive the court negatively, and the court will make bad decisions if the affirmative re-legitimizes them. Bad decisions dismantle democracy by doing things like dismantling the electoral process, doing things like doing things out of line, which proves that the affirmative irreparably harms democracy, and proves that we have a massively risk of a turn. Top level, the 1 year argument was that they solved because they take more conservative judges off the court. Our link is perceptual, their link is substantive. The shuffling of the court cannot happen faster than perceived freedom of action, which is the 1 and C argument that they have conceded. Robert sees public sentiment rise and perceives that they are yesing him to do things like conservative judicial review, but their internal links are about removing Roberts, which won't happen for another 4 years because Justice Roberts is only the second most senior court, which means that the plan cannot cycle the whole conservative court fast enough. But the negatives internal links happen much faster than the affirmative because it's a question of perceived freedom of action. Insofar as Robert sees that his legitimacy is rising, he will perceive that as freedom of action and yesing him to do things like judicial review, etc., because he no longer has the incentive to be the tiebreaker in polarization, which is a lack of 1 year evidence should frame it because our evidence is empirically verified and statistically significant. Clark 11. In each model, we find a negative and significant correlation core curving, and probability core will hold along. Constitutional results suggest a course alignment with the law. Review does not affect probability. Statistical analysis, judicial review from 1877 through the present demonstrates that when core curving in Congress, the justice will exercise between the reaction to core curving is not driven simply by fear that legislation will be enacted, but rather interpretation of winning public support proves that statistically significant factors influence the negative and least prove their arguments now below one. Their arguments at first they say the affirmative is not extremes change. The Supreme Court will be intended to have public legitimacy. The people will see it as a change, but so will the Supreme Court, which is only differential from the affirmative. They conceded that statistical analysis proves that when public legitimacy wanes, the court is more moderated in its decisions, which they cannot explain that if they think that the Supreme Court does not care about public legitimacy. And second is that the Supreme Court does to look at media, etc., because they are normal people, which is what is the evidence that was conceded. They say the plan is popular, which creates freedom of action, because it means that Roberts no longer has to act as a mediary vote because Roberts sees that people no longer see him as politically dependent, which proves that they see him as politically independent, which means that he can do whatever he wants and rule in favor of his own personal opinions rather than moderating the politics. They say the plan solves such stare decisis does not apply to Supreme Court decisions ever and over administrative agencies. It's already empirically denied, which is proven through major questions doctrine and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, etc. proves that the major questions doctrine it turns for stare decisis arguments because it proves that conservative review is what dismantles stare decisis in the first place. Also proves that the affirmative the negative impact turn always on time frame because they're reviewing cases regarding to this in the status quo. They say Roberts is just someone who tried to uphold stare decisis. There's an internal link to public interviews and statistical control analysis proves that Roberts doesn't care about public sentiment. Losing faith isn't our internal link or the advocacy is self-moderating, which answers their argument that losing faith is the critical internal link to judicial overreach. Judicial overreach never occurs because of that, which was a conceded argument coming out of the 1 and C. There's no 1 year evidence to corroborate those claims that say judicial restraint is not always a good thing. We'll concede this argument, but our argument is that judicial restraint is a good thing in context of conservative judicial restraint, because anything else is breaks down democracy. The world of the affirmative unleashes the most conservative version of the Supreme Court, attacking judicial restraint, because the Supreme Court is right now at a 6-3 conservative majority, which means that lack of incentive for moderation proves that they'll dismantle everything. Now, impact level debate, framing issue, we have a turn To climate change conceded, the court reviewing issues regarding to the EPA and freshwater proves that the court will irreparably dismantle things like climate regulations, etc., which means that our impact turn happens way faster. When the affirmative creates perceived freedom of action, it means that the court will dismantle environmental regulations, which is their internal link to democracy solving warming in the first place, which means that the negative impacts from the affirmative impacts and outweigh on time frame. The affirmative has no known time frame way. Warming only occurs from 2050, but no disruptions happen immediately. When the court overturns things like administrative agencies, that limits the flexibility of the state to be able to address issues, because administrative agencies are what states rely on during issues like September 11th, things like pandemics, etc., to issue out things like mask mandates, etc. Otherwise, the legislation needs to go through legislation every single time, which disrupts stability and means that the court means that decision making and governance is no longer stable because of the fact that the legislation cannot pass enough laws fast enough because they require political capital, which means that it causes no disruptions, it causes cascading failures, things like economy collapse, nuclear weapons, nuclear disruptions in reactors, etc. Proves that they cannot roll out regulations fast enough for things like climate change, which irreparably turns climate change, and proves that we have a conceded democracy internally because the court will dismantle everything that upholds democracy, like electoral processes, which proves that we have a massive term that always on time frame. Time frame is the tiebreaker within large debates because you only die once, and proves that if our impact turns theirs before theirs can turn ours, then we should win the debate because they have no time frame for warming. But we'll do the warming debate now. The warming debate, they have read no extra one-year evidence, which means that evidence should be the tiebreaker for any of the arguments that they go for. Specifically, they go for the fact that warming is fast, but they've conceded that you should reject their alarmism because the two-year-old rinse on compounding risk, but those are completely wrong. Compounding risks are the only internal link to warming. Otherwise, warming only occurs in 2050, which means that the affirmative internal links happen decisively faster because the court will dismantle administrative agencies way faster, which will cause no disruptions that will cause every single impact, including climate change. But compounding risks are wrong. First, their internal links are about things like their internal links are about compounding risk that warming increases itself. Those are wrong. The ones isolated inside of their evidence. Sea level rise, it increases by 1 meter by the end of the millennium, and crop yields are already solved by gene editing, storage, improvement, better transportation, which is the fog evidence. Second, methane, best scenario, but it still takes a millennia to reach a significant increase, which gives enough time to adapt and mitigate, and at best, only increases 0.42 degrees Celsius by 2300, which is negligible and far off. No studies to back up their evidence proves that, absent them winning, that there are invisible tipping points. They have no external reason why warming causes extinction, when everything that contributes to warming is mitigated in the status quo, and they have no reconstruction, which means that the negative impacts decisively come faster because they have no argument for compounding risk, which means that warming is extremely slow.
It's like the inverse of that of each warming.
Be a question of terminal impacts, but rather internally. Justin has conceded internally for the 1AC. Here's the thesis of this 2AR. Justin has not responded to the claim of the 1AC that says that absent the 1AC, there is a massive authoritarian takeover that none of their evidence talks about. You went for the impact defense in the 2AR that assumes things like adaptation to the status quo. We have read evidence that says that otherwise there would be autocratic spillover or autocratic takeover. That has a couple internal links that were dropped. One is that it prevents the civil society from being able to hedge against or make the United States do anything, or make any country do anything, which is that they just ignore the public and do whatever they want to get as much money as possible. Second is that it conceded most autocratic states are petrostates. That means that exactly what the Middle East and China do, Russia, etc., are going to be exported to every single country, which makes climate change significantly worse and makes it happen way faster than the turn, which means that this argument should frame most of the impact in the debate, and I shouldn't have to answer all of it. It also hijacks the time frame stuff because it means it would take over immediately. They haven't tested the internally, so you have to grant us this argument. Yes, warming in the status quo might take till 2050, but warming if every state becomes a petrostate that stops caring about climate change, etc., happens way first. That turns the stuff to core legitimacy because there wouldn't be a court in the first place, so there wouldn't be the ability to have things like EPA regulations. If democracy was gone, so nobody would give legitimacy to that state, since the argument is a failed state of the United States. Wanting our evidence is not relevant insofar as you've got an internal link, and reason as to why we're not alarmist. Independently conceded your impacts are also alarmist. No reason as to why they happen faster, since we're winning a spin argument as to how our arguments happen definitely way faster than your arguments. So I shouldn't have to answer the stuff about feedback loops, but I'll do it anyway. Our arguments that feedback loops collapse and methane stuff, etc. Don't assume the arguments we're going for independently. The collapse of one biodiversity area can cause multiple other collapse, which causes in the constant rising of sea temperature only makes impacts worse and worse. I.e., when there are things like firestorms or things like the sea levels rising, that destroys more ecosystem, which destroys the ability to plant crops, etc., which only make that conflict worse because they start doing bad farming practices, etc. Their argument for why the impact turns our arguments to democracy is bad because our arguments happen significantly faster, which is the work done above. The stuff about 9/11 or agencies doesn't matter so far as if we win a some risk of defense to their argument. Time frame might be irrelevant. It's a question of probability. It doesn't matter how bad an impact is. It doesn't matter when an impact's going to happen if it's not going to happen in the first place. That's why we don't prevent against things like asteroids even though asteroids could come super soon. That means probability is the meta weighing that you should evaluate in this debate, and it should come before literally everything. All of Justin's framing about not having evidence is irrelevant. Debate should not be a question of evidence, but rather a question of warrants. We want to warrant as to why Justin's claims are wrong. That should be sufficient. Otherwise, base schools and Harvard what's like a strike would win every single debate round. The time frame stuff, it doesn't matter. Our impacts are definitely more probable. Reverse Pascal's rate was a drop weighing order from the 1 AR, so it outweighs on strength of link. Our argument is that we know how bad global warming is, and we know that it's going to be a massive petrostate that turns every single negative impact because it happens significantly faster, but we don't know how bad judicial overreach is going to be. It's never happened before, and they've conceded a lot of arguments as to why it wouldn't be super duper bad. The last turn case argument was answered above. They say the climate turn to climate change was conceded, but I did that in the earlier part of the speech. Now, the defense. Oh, right, the democracy turn. They say conservative judicial review is the root cause of the issues. No, it's not conceded that judicial review in the status quo does not prevent things like NAPA restrictions. There was one EPA thing that they struck down, but they've also done a multiplicity of other things too. And they haven't affected most climate policy that has existed since the 70s. The nation or other presidents put into praise, which solves most of those arguments independently. Roberts, it's his 18th year in service, which means that he would be gone after this, which means that there's no reason as to why any of these things would be triggered. Insofar as all of their arguments are predicated on Roberts, which means that the advantage should turn it outweighs a significant amount of their offense to where it's not a significant change and they wouldn't care.
Do you like that argument about evidence quality? Evidence versus analytics.
I'm team analytics all the way.
Why are you
No climate change better than cards do.
That's fair.
It's gonna be pretty sad.
Oh, okay.
Then not. No, different Memorial Day. I forgot.
Piggy.
Piggy. Oh, David. Yeah.
Pig, yeah.
So they.
Wait, is Wong like his?
It's not Wong. It's a different. It's a different.
Oh, David.
Yeah.
I'm going with Kanal. Never mind.
nothing. Not a Buc-ee's?
Why? I need to buy it.
Oh, wait, that's so
So I was thinking faster. I just hope pretty much everything.
cute. Yeah, they definitely do.
I'll call it. Special bouquet.
Best for you.
You know, just having trouble.
Is it like a special occasion or just that?
Just haven't seen it. But I want to tell you wrong.
What happened there?
Yeah, it's been like
I mean, it's okay, it's hot. That's good. And I saw the piercing. I have the exact same.
yeah, the usual. I feel like all the girls that I know, they've already had it. Like those kind of piercings for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like a big deal. Like a guy gets something. It's like newer girls usually have it. Like
I want to like deck them out.
yeah. I had with her.
I just got tattoos as well, and now I'm at kind of like, I want to get more. I want to live tat. It would be really fun.
Yeah, they
That's okay. It's just like a friendship. Like, and then just like double.
Perfect.
Yeah, like it's less than
You'd be like 60 and be like, man, I wish I still had lip gloss.
That'd be kind of like a baller grandma move, though, you know? Like,
yeah, this girl in high school signed tattoo tees.
What was that? Was it a seal?
That's racist, Chris.
I know. That's what I said.
Chris, how are you doing? So cute.
How are you?
How am I?
So mysterious.
How am? Oh, good.
You're sitting down.
I'm sitting down.
How are you?
Standing up. I'm not standing up.
Not racist.
Let's let the day unfold.
Yeah, look at your judging this year.
Did you see this post that out popular that a judge used ChatGPT to make the decision?
That's so funny.
Yes, I did.
Oh my
You put the whole
What do I do, ChatGPT?
Somebody just fundamentally misunderstands what ChatGPT is.
I wonder if ChatGPT knows like if you can ask it questions about a specific thing. I mean, hypothetically, it knows everything, right? You can ask it like about like.
No, I asked it like who's the best debater of all time.
That's great.
For a number of reasons.
Ask it where John Cruise is. Oh.
It's an ankle monitor, though, I'll tell you that.
What happened to? I mean, I know sort of what happened to him, but
Luke, you guys
Cody
know
Gray. He like went to jail.
What are you guys on?
Really?
Yeah.
For what?
For
Yeah, you guys are
grooming
qualified to say that's pretty
fucking
cool.
teenage
You were in. All right.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah.
I did all these.
Oh yeah! What's this? Is grooming a teenage girl? Yeah.
Yeah, you guys should definitely keep that. If you ever have like questions and stuff, like definitely
You
get
remember, I
Brett
think
probably
it
has
was,
my
it was when
number.
I was judging this when I was in college. There was that kid that like went to Salado that was like really, he was good. He's
Tyler?
good.
Was it
Tyler
Cook?
Yeah.
Or Sullivan?
It's,
No, Tyler Cook.
Yeah,
And
I used to work at the last firm I worked at. One of the partners who I was friends with, he was a creator, and he was actually Tyler Cook's coach during that time period. Right? James Willis.
Specializing in critique and you're like.
Yeah, and he's like apparently like Tyler was the only sane person in his family. Like Tyler's dad and his brother were like, so his dad was like kind of abusive.
That's weird.
Oh, you sick! Yeah.
Wait.
Sorry, not a good song.